Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 22 of the Dreams Are Real podcast. I'm Dan McPherson, and my job and the purpose of this podcast is to share stories and tools that inspire you and make it easier to follow your dreams. If you're feeling stuck or your dreams seem out of reach, I'd love to help, and you can go to leadersmustlead.com for more information or to schedule a free one-on-one assessment. Our guest today is Beth Bashert. She is the mayor of Ypsilanti, Michigan in the United States. She's incredibly passionate about music and the arts and has been an active community organizer for many years. I was fortunate to meet Ms. Bashert when we both had an opportunity to speak earlier this year at an event hosted by Grove Studios, one of my creative clients. I was inspired by her passion for helping creatives and immediately asked her to take part in the show, a request she happily accepted. During our conversation, we cover a lot of ground, from her role as key player in community activism, inspiring huge changes even early in her career, the importance of dealing with mental health issues, why society must make sure that creatives are getting paid, the power of truth, and even the value of silence and patience. For more info on Beth Bashert, check out her mayoral Facebook account at facebook.com/Bashert4Ipsy. That's the number 4. And for great behind the scenes info and discussion about the podcast, search for the Dreams Are Real podcast group on Facebook and join our growing community. And now, here's my conversation with Beth Bashert. Welcome to the Dreams Are Real podcast, where we aim to ignite the fire that allows you to unleash your greatest potential. I'm your host, Dan McPherson, and I'm on a mission to help you own your story on the way to building your ideal life. The first step toward achieving your dreams is to overcome the momentum of zero. Take a step and let that motion dispel the emotions of fear, worry, or self-doubt. No matter where you are in your life or your career, only you can make that choice. The good news, you've got this. Why? Because dreams are real. Let's dive in. Welcome to the Dreams Are Real podcast. I'm your host, Dan McPherson. Today, we have a first in the history of the podcast. We have our first guest who is deeply involved in politics. We are joined today by Beth Bashert, who is the mayor of the city of Ypsilanti, Michigan. And I have enjoyed connecting with her in the short times that we've had together at events, watching her work from afar, and also have enjoyed connecting with her about her passion for creatives. Beth, thanks for joining us today.
It's my pleasure, Dan, and thank you for inviting me to your podcast. I'm honored to be here. Looking forward to this.
I appreciate it. So am I. I threw out the term mayor, which is certainly a title that connects with you and that is true for you. But how do you respond when others ask what you do?
Great question. I'm just about to come up on my first year of being mayor, and I have to say I'm still getting used to it. It's like a uncomfortable title. I don't know. To me, I'm just Beth, right? And people call me mayor. Hilariously, they call me Your Honor, and it's not hilarious. It's an actual title that goes along with the job. But I've been called a lot of names in my life. Not all of them have been very. And so to have Your Honor being, used at this time is very fun. Just being mayor is fine with me. I'm also in sales. I'm also a grandmother. I have a lot of titles in my life. But for today, I think I can be mayor.
That's great. And it's Your Honor is a pretty solid title that carries some weight with it. You mentioned that title of mayor still has a little bit of discomfort with it. Why is that?
It's, again, I have had kind of a bumpy, wild ride in my life, and I've worn a lot of different hats. The first career that I ever had was in restaurants. I was a bartender. Okay. So I was a bartender in the gay bars in Detroit in the 80s, and now I'm mayor of a city in the Midwest, right? And so from my perspective, this feels like an amazing place to be, and just I'm kind of still a little bit in awe that I'm here. So that's why the mayor. I'm still getting used to the title mayor.
Sounds like an incredible journey, and I'm curious to hear quite a bit more about it. Where did the journey begin even before that? Where did you grow up? How was life as you were growing up?
So I had two kind of unusual parents. My dad had an unusual career. He was a historical museum director, and he ran villages, historical villages. And in the 60s and 70s, the museum director lived in the museum. So we had a home in a historical village my childhood. Okay, so my backyard was those musty museums and back rooms, and I had extensive historical areas to play in. And I would invite my friends over, and we'd wander around the museum and, play essentially. So that was unusual, and I loved it. I now have a tree planted to my dad at the museum that he spent the majority of his career at. It's called Old Economy, north of Pittsburgh, and I go visit it every year and say hi to my dad and visit the museum, and it's a lovely ritual for me. My mother was totally blind before I was born, and so in that historical context, I was surrounded with accommodations for disability. And my mother is incredibly strong. She got her master's degree blind. She was a Phi Beta Kappa blind. When my parents divorced, she raised me and my sister blind with no assistance, right? And I'm not saying it was pretty or good or smooth or anything, but she did it, right? And she's a fiercely strong woman. And my sister is also very disabled. So I'm literally the only able-bodied person in my family. Because of that, I've had kind of a contrasting life. I've got experience with, academia and education and museums, right? And that kind of cultural thing. And I've also got a lot of experience in cultural accommodations for both disability and poverty. My mother and my sister still live essentially in a poverty situation, although they're stable, right? And then I have a lot of associated guilt that goes along with having a family experiencing those things and not being able to make it perfect for them.
Growing up in that incredible tapestry of experiences, which some, it sounds, were difficult, some were maybe easier, but it's certainly a unique mix. Did you feel like you had to grow up earlier than you might otherwise have, or were you able to still enjoy a childhood, maybe even a childhood of wonder in these historical contexts?
So up until when my parents divorced, I was able to have a pretty stable childhood and pretty comfortable. And then when my parents divorced in the late 60s, we were given to my mother. And so I'm the oldest. And so because of my mother's disability, I had to be a very high functioning, 10-year-old. And so I became much more responsible than a 10-year-old should be. And I had to continue that throughout my childhood. When I became an adult and independent, I actually, for a while there, because my sister is schizophrenic and there's probably a mental illness aspect to my mother's life as well, I literally did not know if I was going to be sane or not. Okay. And schizophrenia can manifest up until about 25. So until 25, I treated life a little bit like it was a game of chance, right? No matter what I did, I might end up mentally ill. And so until I was 25, I kind of messed around. I paid my bills and I worked responsibly, and I was I didn't take serious risks, but I did play around and I did mess around until I was 25. And then when I was 25, I looked up and I said, wow, it looks like I'm going to live now, So now I have to start taking life seriously.
Good news. Now I have to do something.
Right? Yeah, right, exactly. And so, so when I was 26, and again, working in the gay bars, right, I lost 3 people in 1 year to all gay bar lifestyle related hazards. One was one of the first AIDS deaths in Detroit. One was a very terrible gay bashing, and another one was I lost and these were all coworkers of mine too, by the way.
Oh, wow.
And one was a drug-related suicide. And so that was a wake-up call like you can't believe. So I actually do have this goal of living, okay? And it looked like that lifestyle wasn't safe or stable anymore. And so I quit my job, I moved to Ann Arbor, and started to do things to put my life in a more stable direction. And here I am today.
It must have been so crushing for you to lose all of those people in such a short period of time. I've lost people that I work with, and I've lost them to suicide and other things. And I know that's impacted me so much. It sounds like it was a true inflection point for you.
It was a watershed moment because it spun me out, quite frankly. That was a lot of loss to experience. As a it was a lot of loss to experience, and I did not manage it well, and I knew I wasn't managing it well, but I knew that I could do things to help me manage it well, and I knew that it was a signal that I had to make some changes, and so I made those changes.
And how did you? I'm many of our guests, or many of our guests as well, but certainly many within our audience struggle with a number of different things. I speak quite frequently about anxiety and depression and a lot of struggles in that area. How did you pull yourself out of that spin, which could have easily been a deep spiral?
I really want to take my hat off. If I was wearing a hat, which I frequently do, I would take it off to the mental health profession right now. I owe the vast majority of my happiness today to work I've done with the mental health profession. I've done a lot of very, very hard therapy and a lot of hard work. I'm very committed to trying to make myself as happy as I can be in the world, right? And I'm not trying to be Mary Sunshine or anything like that, but I consider life finite. It's not that long. I want to do as much as I can. I want to enjoy it as much as I can. My mother is a very depressive person. My sister lives in fear all the time because of her mental illness. And I wanted to have other things in my life other than, depression and fear. And so I did work to, one, teach myself to have clear boundaries so that I can understand where my feelings and my responsibilities and my jobs begin and end, right? And then also where my ability to take care of myself, begins and ends. And so I was able to find a loving spouse, and Lisa and I have been together for 31 years now.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. I was parenting her, she had a 6-year-old when I met her. And so parenting actually also put me in a position where I had to get healthier, right? It was not fair of me to put my issues on a child. And we all do it anyway, a little bit, no matter what we do.
We all do it to a degree,
yeah.
But I in my observation, and certainly in my own experience, when we grow up as children of some degree of trauma, whatever that may be, there's a danger that we repeat the pain of our parents. And it sounds like you had a greater awareness of that going into the parenting world, maybe than most, and made choices to stay away from it.
I did my best. I have to say, I probably made my own colorful mistakes with her, but she still loved me.
We all do. We all do. Thinking of this pre-25-year-old uncertainty, to maybe to use the easiest term for it, as you were growing up, knowing that you had to grow up early, knowing that you had this possibility of mental illness, did you still have dreams? Did you still have things that you looked and said, I want to do this in the world, when you were a kid?
I had all kinds of, I wanted to be an astronaut, I, a lot. I wanted to, then we called kids like me tomboys. Okay. And I grew up to be a butch lesbian. Now we would probably use the word transgender and be asking different questions of me, so it had a lot of boy type dreams when I was a child. right? And happily for me, my parents did not treat me badly because I was very boyish. And that when I said I wanted to be a boy, they would say, they told me the brilliant solution for the 60s. They said, Beth, if you can kiss your elbow, you'll become a boy. Now, I'm going to tell you that was not shaming, okay?
Right.
It kept me very busy.
and overly flexible.
Well, no, I'm not that flexible, and so I completely failed, right? And
Right.
right, it's instinctive. We want to do it, right? And but it was, it was a great parenting message. I'm completely out of the skill set of the normal '60s parent. I have no idea where they came up with it. And but it, so. But I wanted to be, at one point I wanted to be an engineer and an architect, but the trouble is that I'm actually severely dyslexic. And so math and sciences are harder for me than the other side of the brain, the more, I guess, the creative side of the brain, right? And so I understand theory and concept very well, but writing down the answer is not always the most, for the part that I get right. So I went into music. I became a band nerd. I went to music school. Dyslexia stopped me from graduating.
What did you play?
I played the flute. Mm-hmm.
Very nice.
And then I played the French horn, and then I played the sax. I could play almost any instrument I could put in my mouth, and it was just a lot of fun. And I loved it. I'm not actually talented. I'm decent, but I'm not talented. And it was, it got me out of the house, into college, and moving towards adulthood, which is the role that I needed at the time. But I've actually never been able to get a college degree because of the dyslexia.
That my wife and son both suffer with a degree of dyslexia and also dyscalculia, which cause them more issues. They're also both science focused, so they mix up numbers as much as letters. They have found, we stumbled upon maybe 10 or 15 years ago something that helped them, which was inverting the text. So instead of having black text, black print that you would write on white paper, they will flip that and do white print on black paper, and it will change everything. It slowed everything down for them. We stumbled upon that because of a place that I worked in, a product that we sold, strangely enough. And then playing it out, now my wife uses blue paper and writes on that, and it made it to where she could then go on and do advanced science and math classes.
Really? Okay, yes. That's good to know. I found a font that I like, that I use. There's little tricks that I obviously have checks and balances, all over
of course.
And I'm obviously also highly functional. Apparently what I didn't know I was dyslexic until I got to college, because I had been muscling my way through reading music and etc. and memorizing on that first pass through. So after that, I was just, kind of, passing my eyes over the music.
Based upon how fast you memorize, I would have to say that your statement a moment ago that you don't have talent in the music world is probably a little bit understated there. That's a pretty incredible skill to have.
Well, memorizing and music skill may be in different categories, in my opinion, but that's,
maybe so.
Yeah.
Maybe so.
I got to college, and every class in music school and college, especially those first few years, has a performance test, a sight reading test, and a written test. And I do well on the performance, I do well on the written, and then I get to the sight reading, and I was looking at this paper going, it's spaghetti, and so that's where it kind of fell apart. So anyway,
after that. After music school, what was next?
So I became a bartender and then a restaurant manager. I was in restaurants for 15 years. At some point in there, I stopped being a bartender and I started being a restaurant and coffee house manager. I'm very proud of the fact that I was a manager at Zingerman's for a number of years. That was the last restaurant I worked in the deli, and that commitment to service and quality is something that I carry with me, which is why I'm calling out Zingerman's by name. Okay.
I love that. I'm a huge fan of Zingerman's as well. I have a number of friends who work there. I have spent more than a few dollars there. And for those who are listening who are not in the US, you can Google Zingerman's. They're featured in a number of books. They have a number of different businesses. They have a true commitment to service and very quality food. And it is It's a great thing. So
They will mail sandwiches to you.
yes, they will. They're internationally known. The president eats at the deli when he stops in town. So, whoever the president may be at the given time. So that's.
I did that, and then in 1998 there was an act of discrimination in the city of Ypsilanti. An LGBT social work group at EMU tried to get a raffle ticket printed. A print shop took the job and then called them back and returned the job, saying that they didn't, quote unquote, know who they were, and now they don't want to do the job anymore. So the student group came to the city hall, said, what do we do about this? What's our non-discrimination ordinance say? We didn't have a non-discrimination ordinance at the time. It was the gay community got together. I'm going to use the word gay in this conversation because it was 1998.
Yeah, right. That was the word that was used, maybe, right?
A lot, yeah. And so what ended up happening was longer than a year-long process, community-wide, where we went to terrible, terrible hearings about LGBT people and why we don't need any protection, and city passing a non-discrimination ordinance, and then it going to the voters through referendum and passing it. And we won that campaign by a record then in the country. And our campaign was used in a book called Gay Rights at the Ballot Box by Amy Stone, and as the way to run one of these campaigns. And technology aside, those tactics are still very solid.
That's powerful, and we can link to that in the show notes as well.
Yeah, it's a great book, and Amy Stone is doing a lot of really great research about ballot initiative, about these ballot initiatives. So that victory was very, very exciting to me and mobilizing, and it was clear that there was a lot that could be done here. The work that we had done had changed the history of Ypsilanti right then. Okay, and that non-discrimination ordinance continues to be a very valuable tool in our city. For instance, we just added immigration status and citizenship status to our list of protected categories, so that in this time of targeting people for being non-citizens, people can feel safe in the city of Ypsilanti. So I became a community organizer at that time and was a campaign manager for a while. I was a nonprofit fund development director for a while. I was the founding president of Michigan Equality, which was a statewide 501c3, C4, and PAC. Its first year of being in business, it was one of the 50 largest PACs in the state of Michigan, and it's now Equality Michigan. You might know it under that rubric. And so I did those kinds of jobs for a while. Then after that, I decided I needed to make an actual income, because those jobs didn't pay very well. So I went into sales and took a break from politics.
Right.
Now I'm in politics.
So as you were beginning this community activism and organization, was that something that you felt like you stumbled into? Was it something you felt like came naturally?
Life had handed me those opportunities. I did not go looking for them. I was the co-chair of that non-discrimination ordinance, for instance, and I had stopped my life for 6 months. I worked at unemployed,
right.
For instance, right? And so, but I found a passion and a skill set. Okay, being a community organizer the way that I think about it, it's a way of viewing the world in terms of connections between people and resources, and having ideas about how to bring them together to make positive change happen. Okay, and so that's what I found, and I still continue to believe that I have skills in that area. I hold office from the perspective of being a community organizer. How can we bring people together to make change happen in a way that increases resources in a community?
When you began community organizing, did you have a dream looking forward of saying, someday I will be mayor or governor or whatever it might be? Or were you just charging forward and doing what you could and kind of head down, moving forward through it?
More like a head down, moving forward, moving through it kind of a thing. I did not have aspirations beyond what I was doing. I tend to really, I have to say, have a deep passion for local politics. Almost all of what I've done has been local, in the city or in the county exclusively. And that continues to be where my passion is.
How did it feel the first time you saw your name, Beth Bashert? There it is, right on a ballot.
Wow, I still have it framed on my wall.
So I'm guessing it felt pretty good.
It was pretty exciting. It was, and it still makes me pretty excited. You know, again, I still see myself every time I hear the word mayor or see my name as a candidate or see my name on a title. I feel that long evolution from bartender. You know. And probably even longer, the child struggling to help her blind mother, right? It's where I'm at today feels in some ways magical sometimes.
And looking at that, being excited, do you look and say, man, I'm just so proud of that name? Or is it, and that it's where it is, or is it more about the journey, or is it a little bit of both, right? I think some people, they look and they go, I want that name to be known for good things. And some people look and say, I just want to have survived the journey.
That's a great question, Dan, actually. That really is. You know, I feel like in the end, no matter what I do, all I'm going to have is my name, right? And whatever I accomplish or don't accomplish, I want people to say that I was, to the best of my ability, honorable, trustworthy, a mensch. I stood up, right? And I did what I said I was going to do, right? And so that's what I want people to remember about me, if anything else, right? Maybe that I'm a little funny. Who knows?
A little bit of that as well, right?
Yeah, but you know, I don't have aspirations of leaving behind a major legacy. You know, it's taken a lot of work to get here. I'm really happy where I'm at. If the world brings me more, I'm going to be grateful for it. This is amazing to me right here.
Speaking of names, is there a specific history to your name, or is it about building the future of that name?
That's a great question too. So Lisa and I met, and some of our friends were having ceremonies. They were having commitment ceremonies, right? And I told Lisa, I'm not going to have a commitment ceremony until we can get married for real and we can have the same name. Right, and then one day, it occurred to me that we could have the same name. All we had to do was change our name. So neither one of
you were making it a little too complicated.
Right. So we're not fans of hyphenating, and my name was Rybel, her name was Marshall, and so we're fans of hyphenating, and some people were putting their names together and taking half and half and putting it together. Well, if you take Rybel and Marshall together, you get Marble. That wasn't fun. So instead, we went into other languages and that were related to our backgrounds and tried to find words that might have meaning. And so Bashert is Yiddish, and I'm Jewish, and Lisa's Germanic, and so this fit us background-wise. And Yiddish for destined or meant to be. It's kind of like the Yiddish que sera, sera. But there's an element about it that's also about love. And you're supposed to, according to Jewish law, marry your besherta, or your intended one. And so Bashert has a complex meaning for us. We heard the name at a poetry reading by a lesbian poet called Irena Klepfich. The poem was called Bashert. It was about the Holocaust, which was darker than we wanted, but the word kept coming back to us.
Well, that's a powerful meaning, but a short history, which means you have the opportunity to build an incredible future. I love that.
It's true. Yeah. And we're the only Basherts in the country. There's another spelt the way we are. There's another lesbian couple we know of that changed their name to Bashert too, not knowing us or that we had. And, but that's the only other, and they're no longer together, but I think we're the only Basherts spelled the way we are in the country.
That's fantastic. You're easy to find that way also.
Sadly, yes.
Well, that or good if it's for a ballot, right? You get your name on more ballots. Easy to find. Nobody's going to question whether they have the right one.
So the other side of that, Dan, I'm sorry, just the name change was intentional to what we called trick the enemy. Okay, fool the enemy, because people assume if you have the same name that you're family.
Hmm.
And Lisa and I could not have a legal relationship outside of just living together and owning a house together. So the name change actually did work for 20 some years. People, we would walk in the room and say, we're the Basherts, and they never asked a question after that.
Wow.
Okay. And so it did give us a little bit of added cultural protection that we might not have had.
So meaning and strategic impact. I love it. Your journey has brought you to this spot. What is important to you now that you are mayor? Now that you had your name on the ballot, you are your honor. What's important to you?
There's several things that I want to do as mayor of Ypsilanti. And one is I want to offer transparency in a time when we're losing ongoing news media. Okay. And so we have fewer resources, which means we almost have an increased need for transparency because the news is not doing the job that they normally do. Yes, we have some great resources, but they're not the same as a daily news, print, or whatever media that is covering all of Ypsilanti all the time. Okay, and so having seen residents come into city council and to meetings frustrated over and over and over again that they don't know what's going on, that is a very acute need to me. The second thing is that I see this time as an opportunity for not just my community but the whole region, for us to come out of a time of possible austerity when there wasn't a lot of construction, when we were really constrained as far as what kind of growth we could do. And now I feel like we're able to do some fun and exciting things in our city, like add a train station, okay? Like develop a historic building from the Civil War and turn it into a restaurant and apartment building, right? And remove a dam that is impairing our river's ability to be prepared for climate change and, other things like that. And so I feel like there's a lot of opportunity here, and doing that in a way that is transparent and all that change in a way that's transparent and relaxed to the city, that's what's important to me.
Building the future, doing it in a transparent and clear way. I love it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Leaving things different and powerful and positive, not just for the future, but for Ypsilanti and its residents as a whole. It's a powerful story for sure. When we met, it was surrounding the idea of creativity. In fact, we met at a music practice space for one of my clients, Grove Studios. How has the passion for creatives and the arts factored into your role as a mayor and as an individual?
When I've been watching our city post manufacturing and change, right? We were a Rust Belt city. Okay, we have 650,000 square feet of empty activity in our city, empty factory. Okay, and so that's a lot of unemployed people, and that's a lot of economic gaps that it leaves. And so what I watched happen is an increased local music scene. Several local theater companies pop up, a large nonprofit just around the arts pop up, more and more and more live music venues opening up, this kind of thing happening. And I thought, well, as I was considering running for office, I thought this is amazing and it's dynamic and it's happening on its own. And then I thought, what would happen if the city itself actually stepped in and started actively supporting all of this dynamic and successful arts industry? And so that's where I came up with the idea of an arts commission. The commission in a city plays the role of being a community voice and eyes and ears for a particular area of expertise. And they also are an arm of the city, so that they have the opportunity to capture grants, do the vetting of, in the community process for some things, coordinate with staff and have staff be able to help make things happen depending on what the commission decides, right? And they're advisory to city council. And so city council then starts to get regular input from these commissions on particular areas that we need to know about. And so that's something that I would love to see happen. And I've given that commission a particular mission, which is to not just find increased opportunities, period, but to make sure that those communities address the entirety of the city of Ypsilanti. So, for instance, we don't have a lot of opportunities for urban art, okay? And graffiti in particular is a valid and amazing form of art. We need to have places in the city set aside for urban art, right?
When I was traveling in Melbourne, one of the most beautiful things that I saw were all the places where approved graffiti is. It was stunningly beautiful. It was transformative, and I'm excited to see that come, as I am with the power of all creatives. In fact, I believe pretty passionately that creatives and entrepreneurs, particularly women entrepreneurs in many cases, will be a significant force for change, and in fact will be the groups that largely inspire generational change in the coming years. I'm excited to hear about that.
I agree with you 100%. I think it's some very exciting things, and to have a city that is safe and comfortable and pleasant to be in is wonderful, is good. Having a city that's beautiful, safe, wonderful, and comfortable to be in is a whole nother thing. And so, so I'm very excited about working with the creatives to help these opportunities come together, to find funding, maybe to create economic development opportunities, bring jobs and careers into the city related to the arts. And rather than have everybody just doing it part-time in the back room, after they've done a full day's work, right? So those are kind of some of the dreams that I have for our city, the arts, and this art commission.
I love those dreams, and I appreciate the sharing of that vision in so many ways. I work with so many musicians and artists who are doing exactly what you said. It's their side hustle. In fact, in many cases, it's been relegated to their hobby, or other people have told them to go get a real job. And I believe very strongly that they should be able to pursue their dreams, make not only a livable income, but a significant income by doing that, as long as they're willing to do the work. We have so much talent in the city of Ypsilanti. It excites me. I attend musical performances there. I've met many of the artists there, and to see the beauty that they bring into the world, anything that we can do to give that a megaphone and share it in a positive and powerful way will help transform the community for sure.
I couldn't have said it better, Dan. You just absolutely, it's perfect. Our daughter and son-in-law live in town, and they're in a local band now, and they've been in a couple. And I like to a joke that I say is, you can't fall down in Ypsilanti without finding some fun music or art event that's happening. And so I think there's just some great opportunities here.
There are. That's wonderful. As you've gone from this journey from child to mayor, what are some of the lessons that you would say you've learned along the way that stand out to you?
Wow, what a great question. You've just given me, are you really actually asking me to share my lectures with you? Because I have a lot.
maybe the bullet point version.
There's a couple of major philosophies that I have that have come out of this, okay? And one is that I have a commitment to being really honest and direct. And at one point to survive and to survive my childhood, which got pretty darn difficult towards the end, I could not be very honest with people around me. And so when I became an adult, it became clear to me that that was not a winning strategy again, right? And so I became very, very committed to honesty and directness. And so I may choose words to say that are more polite than, or more neutral at times to describe things, but I will always say the truth to people. Okay. And I will always be very direct. And sometimes that is comfortable and sometimes it's uncomfortable to people. But that is a commitment that I made that I cannot stray from, because I've seen where it can take me or other people in other ways. The second thing that is kind of like a key philosophy of mine and I actually used this at a graduation speech that I made, is the world is run by those who show up. Okay, so sometimes if the least I can do, or least anybody can do, is just make it in the door, that is more than most people, right? If you're at the table, you have a voice. If you have a voice, you have input, okay? And so sometimes, if that's the least that we can manage that particular day, please do it, because not showing up means that you're completely absent. And this applies to, the small things, just from showing up at work, to voting, to being present at your family functions, to being at the meetings, right? Today, in a world where we don't have enough news coverage in our city, I find that the role of the town hall is taking on new meaning, possibly might becoming what it was back in old-fashioned times a little bit more, where we get together, we have live conversations since we don't have ongoing news coverage. And so show up at those town halls, right? If you show up, you are present and you are aware and you are at the table. And so that's another one. And the last philosophy that I have that I quote a lot ad nauseum is Tom Stoffel. There ain't no such thing as a free lunch. It's from Robert A. Heinlein, The Moon is a Harsh Mistress. And the minute somebody tells me something is cheap but high quality, discounted or free, I'm immediately suspicious. Somebody is not being paid a living wage. Some material has been sacrificed. Somebody has been stolen from. Somebody is being harmed by that price dip. Okay. And unless I'm aware of it, I do not want to participate in it. If I'm aware of it and it fits my values, then I might purchase it. But I have to tell you, it has to fit my values, because there ain't no such thing as a free lunch, and I will not cause harm to somebody else knowingly through a purchase. There's always unintended consequences, but I do my best to educate myself in that. So those are some lessons that I learned.
I appreciate those lessons. I think they are all very powerful. To the last one, it connects to the messages we were speaking about with creatives before. Yeah. I am amazed at how many times that creatives, musicians or artists or photographers are asked to do things for, just do it for the exposure. Right.
It's a great marketing opportunity.
Right. And there may be a strategic reason, but I'm a fan of, and I tell my clients to either charge correctly or do it for free. There's no in between. And if you're doing it for free, have the right reason, have the strategic reason to be doing it. Don't be doing it just because someone said they would give you some exposure.
When I ran my campaign, there was this, I hired a local video company to make my commercials. Okay, I'd never done a commercial. I didn't know what to do. And this place was called Ward One Production. It was using young adult Black talent from Southside Ypsi to make these very high quality commercials. And the production company is no longer around, but I paid them a professional wage to do a professional job. I got quality output out of it. And yesterday I was interviewed for another vlog, I think is what it's called. And they videoed me. Some of those, they're still out there doing this work, And so that's another example. We have to put our money where our mouth is. And if we don't pay them, they're never going to become successful.
And we have to understand too that there is value in paying them and creating their success, but there's also a lot of truth in that you get what you pay for.
Right.
There's a big difference. I work with that with quite a few clients, and helping them take the mindset shift as they begin to charge others that it's okay, that profit isn't a dirty word, that being able to pay your bills is not only acceptable, it's necessary and should be a part of the plan. That's a key component of working through that. Related to this idea of learning lessons, what is something that you know now that you wish you'd known maybe 20 years ago or when you started?
Oh, holy cow. I wish I had learned the lessons of patience and silence a little bit more then, right? And just let something evolve a little bit longer sometimes before you react. Let's see what the next step is before you jump in. And I cannot tell you how much more effective my work has become when I've been able to see when that was, more often, when that's the wise thing to do, okay? And then the second thing is that the power of silence, right? Just taking a pause, just letting silence be there, be uncomfortable, letting things develop, let other people have the room. Being silent, it does not mean giving up power in a situation, but it does mean that I hear more, I learn more, and when I do speak, I am more respected. So those are two things I wish I'd known.
Those are two lessons that I have learned. One, I'm far better at applying than the other. I've made great strides in patience. Silence, I know it. I teach it. I am working on it, but it's like erosion, I think.
Yeah, that's a hard one, I have to say. I think that one ages me when I have to use it.
Fair, very fair, and myself as well. You have, in your different roles, worked with many people who are entrepreneurs, who are creatives. What do you think is the most important characteristic if they're going to be successful? What have you observed?
The willingness to make mistakes. You have to be able to put yourself out there and let something succeed or fail. And if it fails, not decide that it was a waste. Because the biggest lessons that we learn are usually learned through failing rather than succeeding. Number one. And number two, it makes us, it actually keeps us humble. I think humble is important. And as a dyslexic, I am often in the position where I have said or written something that was not what was in my mind. My pen will literally write something, or my mouth will sometimes say something that was not in my mind. And so I'm often in the position of saying, oops, I didn't mean that, okay? And I have gotten, because of dyslexia, very comfortable with some of these, small mistakes and just rolling with it, letting people help me be successful. And so I would say, I listened to a podcast one day and it talked about, geniuses are often, they just have, they're just trying 1,000 ideas. And maybe 1 or 2 or 3 of those thousands ideas will work, but they're just willing to make 9,900 mistakes to get there, right? And, or, 900 mistakes to get there. And so that willingness to just mess up, pick yourself up and try again is what I think is key.
I love it. When people ask me what has helped me to do well, one of the answers that I give most frequently is that I haven't done things that are more significant than others, but that I have failed faster than others, that I will run forward to the next failure, knowing that eventually one of those, that the power of large numbers has to be in my favor at some point.
For any one of my hobbies, I can tell you, I have thrown out, one of my hobbies is charcuterie. I cure meat, right? I have thrown out incredible amounts of meat just because I failed, right? Something happened and there it is. It just happens. And so forgive yourself and let yourself do it.
One of the lessons we share in the martial arts that is true as an entrepreneur as well is you have to be willing to be bad at something before you can be good at it. And that is another difficulty on that path.
That's a big one. You're right. Yeah.
Are there any particularly useful resources that have made it easier for you to chase your dreams, or that you would point entrepreneurs or creatives toward as they're chasing their dreams? It could be podcasts or books or tools that you found useful. Where would you point them?
Great question. My successes really started to accumulate when I was able to start to build teams. Okay. And I built teams with intentions. When I looked at what my skill set was and what the gaps in my skills are, and I looked for team members who would bring those skills in. Okay. When I built those teams with intention, that's when, and that takes some serious self-examination. That needs to be able to say, look, I may be all that in a bag of chips, but I need help in this particular area. Okay. And for me, I need somebody around me that's good with details. So the first team member I find is somebody who will look at things with details while I can concentrate on big picture. Right. And so on down the line. And so, I learned those lessons the hard way by trying to do everything myself, by failing by trying to do everything myself. right? And so that's one tool that I would say. That's what comes to mind right away. And no, I can't point you to a particular book or a particular podcast or anything that has shaped me. But there have been watershed pieces that I've read that kind of pushed me in different directions. None's coming to mind right at the moment, sadly.
No, totally fine. And if they do in the future, throw them out there. We'll add them to the show notes. No, looking for a team and understanding that you want people who aren't just like you, but who rather fill in the spaces you don't fill is a powerful tool. I appreciate you for sharing that for sure. We talk a lot about dreams. What are your dreams at this point? As you look forward, what is your dream now?
I am 59 years old, and I'm thinking about what I want to do as I head towards the end of my careers, right? And I've had 3 successful careers. There's an argument I'm working on my 4th, being in politics. And I want to have my senior years, my older years, to be service-oriented and relaxed. Okay. And so what I want to do is I want to retire from my professional job in sales and just be able to do some level of service in a part-time way and enjoy the fruits of labor of my life. Okay. And it's a simple thing, but I have had to work very, very hard in my life to get where I'm at. And I have to say, looking forward to a time where I'm not working this particularly hard every single day is pretty attractive to me.
That's a pretty good goal for sure. What?
Go ahead.
No, you're good. Yeah. What is this idea that dreams are real mean to you? If you were to say that or just think of that phrase, what does that mean to you?
I did some thinking about that actually, because I've been talking about this podcast as we've been preparing for it, and that phrase has been in my mind. When I was a child and going through some difficult years with, a disabled mother and sister, for me, at the age of 10, I said, if I can get to 18, I'll go to college and I'll be okay, right? So then I had an 8-year vision, which arguably is pretty ambitious for a 10-year-old, right? And I did it. I muscled my way to 18. And then I didn't know what to do, right? And so then I said, now I've got to make it to 25, okay? So I tried to make it to 25, walking a tightrope of not caring and not doing anything fatal, right?
Right.
And then after that, I started to be able to have more concrete dreams. And today, I have a family. I have a spouse of 31 years. I never thought I'd be emotionally healthy enough to have a healthy relationship with somebody I love as passionately as I love Lisa, right? And we're incredibly close to our daughter and her family, and I'm a grandparent now, and that's amazing to me. I have, when I think about the fact that I didn't even know if I was going to be sane in my life, and now I have a home and a career, and I'm respected in the community by many, but not by all. And I have skills that are respected, right? And I have people who care about me. That's much more than I ever, ever, ever expected, okay? In my life, everything above sane is gravy.
That's a great quote. That may have... that feels like that should be on a t-shirt. In my life, everything above sane is gravy. That's it.
So if I tripped and lost everything that I had, but was still sane, I would still be right where I would still be a net gain for me. I'd be incredibly sad because now I've got a lot to lose. But you get the idea. And so, for me, what I have right now is my dream. I am in awe and a little bit intimidated by all that I have in my life. And especially when I think about my mother and my sister, who are very comfortable, by the way, but they're not as comfortable as I am. And I can't, no matter what I do, I cannot make their life better, right? I cannot. And my mother, in fact, right now is in the process of dying. And it's going to... Yeah, and thank you. And I'm, working with her and her family and hospice and doctors and things like that. And, so it's a reminder of how far I've come in all these interactions, of how far I've come. And this is amazing. And I'm incredibly grateful. And this would be my dream.
So that's your dream. Others look at you and say, you've succeeded at multiple careers. You've come out of very difficult situations. You are a mayor. You are moving forward, and you're an example that dreams are real to them. How do you feel? How does it make you feel when others would cite you as an example that dreams are real?
At Pride this last year, Dan, I got up on the stage and I spoke to Ypsilanti as the gay mayor at Gay Pride. And I'd never done that before. And I'm still pondering the feelings that I had up there. I mean, I came out in the 70s, right? I've never been anything other than a lesbian. I've never tried anything else. This is just who I am. I'm a butch lesbian. You can tell from a block and a half away what I am. And so it's, so I've had a very, this is something that I wear on my shoulder, right? And so to see the evolution of Pride from the 70s when it was fear and anger to now when it's celebratory and joyful, right, was evocative to me. I can't even begin to tell you the feeling. I still haven't even analyzed the feelings that I had myself, okay? And so when people tell me, I think about, when you asked that question, I thought about that moment, okay? Because I haven't just done this as the child of poverty and disability and academia that I am. I also did it as an out butch lesbian and, with no place to hide. And so, for me, I'm in some ways, I feel like I'm honored that I can role model that particular vision to that particular community. That's the one that's the image that I think about when you ask that question. Because 25 years ago, a city council member asked me, do you want to run for city council? And I actually said, no, I don't think that this is going to work, right? I just don't think the city's ready for it. Now I'm the mayor, right? And that's been a hectic 25 years. But that's how much we've evolved also, or my perception of how much we've evolved are both.
The magic of dreams and the journey. I love it. And speaking of journey, we've made it to our fortunate five, the 5 questions that I ask all of our guests of some of the fun things that we've been fortunate to do or would like to be, and even one in the world. The first one is, what is the most exciting or adventurous thing that you've ever done?
Wow. All right. Exciting or adventurous? I'm going to tell you, so this is probably not the most exciting or adventurous. It's a story that comes up in my life. When I was 9, just before my parents separated, we flew to Europe. We bought a VW Beetle and a tent and camping gear. And my blind mother, our Doberman Pinscher guide dog, my sister and I and my dad drove around in Europe for 9 weeks in a 1969 VW Beetle and camping gear. And if you've ever seen how small those things are.
I have. I've been in one.
Oh my God. It was epic, right? And we did it with a historic museum director. Let me tell you, you get a lot out of Europe from a museum director, a historical guy, right? So it was an amazing trip. And so that would be the biggest adventure, I suppose.
That is a huge adventure. You said you weren't sure that it was. That's pretty high up there.
Yeah.
What is something that you're not good at yet, but wish you were?
Great question. Okay, that's a good question. Okay, I have a number of hobbies. I'll tell you what, I talked about charcuterie. I cure meat, right? I've never been able, I've been able to make pancetta and sausages and salamis and pâtés and things. I've never been able to make a prosciutto, a ham, okay? And I would love to. I've failed twice. I've thrown out 2 full pieces of meat. I just can't bring myself to try it again. And but I would love, that would be my dream. I would love to try and get that done.
I'm hungry now, and that leads us perfectly into our next question. which is, what is the best food experience or meal that you've ever had?
Wow, boy. We have a group that Lisa and I were part of forming 14 years ago, and it's a Shabbat group. Once a month, 5 households in our neighborhood get together for a Jewish Shabbat gathering, and we kill our dining rooms. Okay, it's like 18 to 20 people, and we're all food good. We're all great cooks. Okay, and we come from different styles, and we also love our wine, which means really fun evenings. And so I will tell you that some of those meals are just breathtaking. I cannot tell you how the stops that people pull out for those. But I'm going to call out in particular one household that makes an incredible roast beef that just falls apart with it's a beautiful roast. I don't know where they get this meat from. I think they get it from one of the local butchers, and with a horseradish sauce and beautiful vegetables, and it's just breathtaking. So yeah, I would say that every month I have a culinary beautiful night with that group.
That is fantastic, and I'm twice as hungry, so I'm certainly eating after we record this. As you think about the destinations in the world that you haven't been but may be excited to go, what is your dream travel destination? What's somewhere that you haven't been that you say, that would be my dream, I really want to go there?
There are so many. This is a great question. Lisa and I were just talking about this. We have a vintage camper that we redid a couple years ago, and so we'd love to go camping out west in general. But I want to go to Israel and Egypt and Greece. I'd love to. I was in Greece once. I'd like to go again. And Lisa would like to go to Scotland and Ireland. And so both of us have those destinations is on my mind. But and I'd love to go. I would also like to go north to see either Alaska or some kind of way in which I could see the glaciers before they're all gone. That's another thing I think.
Lots of beautiful places. My son's number one is Greece, so he's with you. All right, last question of our Fortunate 5. What do you hope or believe will be the most exciting invention of the next 30 years?
Wow. Massive question. I love it. I actually am a little intrigued by some of the work going on with protecting seashore communities from encroaching seas. Okay, so particularly Venice is doing some really interesting things. I'm worried about the communities that are on all the ocean shores, island communities in particular. But there's been some work, and I don't think we're going to be able to protect all of them. I don't think it's economically viable to do so. But there is some work going on around industrial and massive size bumpers, essentially, that will protect communities from rising seas. And I don't know if it's long-term, but I know that the work that's going along in that area is interesting to me. And I'm hopeful that something exciting will come out of that.
Your environmental passion shines through, and that's a solution that I hadn't heard. I love that. Do you believe the greatest impact from an environmental protection standpoint will be coastal, or do you believe, you mentioned a moment ago the glaciers and how they're going away? Do you believe that's a deeper impact? What is the biggest area of focus that you think can make a difference?
All of those are just symptoms, really. That's the problem. Okay, so you're asking me which symptom is the most dangerous?
I suppose so.
Yeah, I'm not sure that there's a good answer to that. I will say that I'm very excited and happy that that myself and my family is in Michigan, where we're mostly protected from many of the most dangerous aspects of climate change, right? So the encroaching seas are never going to come to us. And the increased hurricanes are never going to reach us. We don't have flooding. and the increased sized insects and diseases, the bugs that they carry, are not going to reach us. According to the current calculations, I'm using Albert Gore's work right now. There's a map that he has that shows this. So Michigan and Wisconsin are basically some of the safest areas in the country, according to these maps. And so I'm happy for my family along those lines. I have a grandson, I have a granddaughter about to be born in the next few days. And I'm incredibly worried for them because there's no way we can protect them from what's coming. And so all we can do is raise them to be strong and hope that we have some protections that come in place to help them have safe lives in which they can enjoy all that they have.
So like so many other larger issues, deal with the symptoms as they're happening and become incredibly painful, but focus upon creating generational change that will address the causes.
Yeah, exactly. That's a great way of putting it. Thank you.
As we wrap up, is there a certain thought or message that you'd like to leave with our audience?
I, in general, would just say to your audience, be kind to each other and don't make assumptions about what other people are thinking. Just kind of, accept what somebody's asking or talking about. And if you think you know what they're saying, ask them rather than tell them, because you'll get a lot more out of it. And that's it.
Very simple, very powerful. How can people find and connect with you? How can our audience connect with you? And also, is there anything you're working on that they should know about?
So there's several projects that we have working on. The Arts Commission is one, but I'm excited to tell you that Ypsilanti has our 200th anniversary coming up in 2023. And
Fantastic.
I know, and there's a very energized vision that's coming out about this, and I'm really geeked about pulling together that group that's going to, it's not going to be me who's leading it because that's more than America can handle, but the right people have stepped forward to pull that together, and I think we're going to have a year full of celebration in Ypsilanti around our bicentennial.
Wonderful.
So, and I'm thankful that I'm the mayor for the bicentennial because I cannot quite say sesquicentennial well yet. So I'm just glad I wasn't around in 1973. So look for that. That's going to be the big news in the coming years. And what was the other part of that question?
Where can they find you? How can they connect with you?
Okay. I would suggest let's go to, I'm going to give you my city email address. They can write me at mayor@cityofypsilanti.com. And they can also find me on Facebook. I have both a personal page, which is my name, Beth Bashert, but I also have a city page that's called Bashert for Ypsi. Okay, and so look for those ways to contact me.
Perfect. And we'll link to those in the show notes as well so that it's easy and nobody has to worry about the spelling of Ypsilanti. Who doesn't live within 1,000 miles, they won't have to guess. I'm so grateful for you being with us, sharing your story, sharing your vision. Thank you so much, Beth. I appreciate it.
Dan, it's been an honor. Thank you so much for inviting me and for taking the time to interview me. I look forward to following your work in the future months and years to come.
Thanks. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you for joining us on the Dreams Are Real podcast. If anything we've said has inspired you to dream bigger, live more boldly, or move closer to your ideal life, please reach out and let us know, and also be sure to share this episode with a friend. We would be honored if you would like, subscribe, and leave a review for our show on your favorite podcasting platform. And for more discussion of this episode and all things related to the Dreams Are Real podcast, and to receive your free download of Dan's Defining Your North Star training, please join our Dreams Are Real community on Facebook. Until next time, be amazing and keep crushing it.